Namaskar everyone and welcome to the Gita Satsang for today. Let us start with the Prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Sri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Gita Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let's chant the shlokas. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय हरये परमात्मने प्रणतः क्लेशनाशाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः रामानुजदयापात्रं ज्ञानवैराग्यभूषणं श्रीमद्वेङ्कटनाथार्यं वन्दे वेदान्तदेशिकं यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुग्म व्यामोहतस्तवितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये। So with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us get started with our topic for today. So last time we have seen up to the 10th shloka of the 4th chapter, and in that the thing where we had stopped was that Krishna was telling Arjuna about how many devotees, many people who have great love for me, when they do their sadhana in the proper way, they become free of raga, dvesha, and all such negative sentiments and emotions, and because of that they come to me like that. So here Krishna in the next few shlokas is further explaining about how this process works. So in the 11th shloka, Lord Krishna says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tamstathaiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushyaha partha sarvashah. In whatever way people surrender unto me, I reciprocate accordingly. Everyone follows my path, knowingly or unknowingly, O son of Pritha. So by saying son of Pritha, he is referring to Arjuna. So Partha, son of Pritha. So Krishna is telling Partha that there are different people who follow different paths. And by different methods, they come and surrender themselves unto me finally. So whether they are doing one particular path or another path, knowingly or unknowingly, they are ultimately coming towards me only. Now, here, the concept for us to understand is that what Krishna is telling, that different people come to him in different ways. So, as we may have seen around us, there are people who do worship, there are people who do Adhyatmik sadhana in different ways. So, there are some people who will do a lot of ritualistic worship. There are some people who will not do ritualistic worship, but mentally they perform upasana. Now, how exactly one person sees the Lord depends on what kind of a bhava we have towards the Lord. What is our, so to say, spiritual level? Like just like in school, we have, kindergarten, and then we have primary school, high school, and so on, and college and PhD and all that. Similarly, in spiritual practice also, there are different grades of devotees. There are different levels at which people can perform their sadhana. So one thing to remember is that how do we see the Lord? It depends on what is our emotional connect with the Lord. To give one very common example, when Lord Narasimha took avatara, right? When the Lord incarnated as Narasimha, it was such a terrible form. It was so terrible that it created a lot of fear in the heart of Hiranyakashipu. But that same form of the Lord, when Lord Narasimha placed that lion paw-like thing on the head of Prahlada, he was not scared. So why was there this difference in perception of that same avatara? If somebody is Hiranyakashipu, if he is full of evil, he will naturally be scared of this form of the Lord. But if somebody is like the Bhakta Prahlada, if he is a Bhakta, then he has no fear because he knows it is this same Lord who has come in this form to save him. Right? So when we see Narasimha's form, if we are scared, that means there is more of the Hiranyakashipu component in us. And if we feel joy, then it feels as if we are like having more of bhava like Prahlada. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto, there is a description of how Lord Krishna, he has come from Gokula. He has come now, right? He has left all these gopis and gopas in Vrindavan, and with Akrura, he has traveled and he has come to Mathura. Mathura is the place where he was born, but then he did not stay there beyond a few minutes or a few hours at the most, because he had instructed Vasudeva to take him over to Nanda. So now, when Krishna comes back to Mathura, he has come at the invitation of Kamsa. So when Krishna enters Mathura, and then he does all his alankara, there are different leelas that he performs. And finally, when he enters that wrestling arena, right? That place where the wrestling match has to take place, different people looked at Krishna and saw different things in him. So in this 43rd chapter of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 17th shloka, Shukamuni describes that how people saw him. So various groups of people in the arena regarded Krishna. They saw Krishna in different ways when he entered it along with Balarama, his elder brother Balarama. The wrestlers who were standing there, now they saw Krishna as a lightning bolt. Now, a lightning bolt is something which is very quick and which is going to cause damage to you. So the wrestlers saw Krishna as a lightning bolt. The men of Mathura saw Krishna as the best of the males. So they had a lot of affection for him. And they thought, oh, he's really one among the best of the male people. What about the women? They said, oh, he's Sakshat Manmatha. He is just Kamadeva. He's Cupid in person. How did the cowherd men see? Cowherd men were who? The people who had come along with Krishna and Balarama from Vrindavan. So they saw him as their relative. There were so many rajas who were sitting there who were all evil. They were impious. So they saw him as a chastiser. Chastiser means somebody who is going to put them in their place, somebody who is going to punish them. So those evil kings and rulers saw Krishna as somebody who has come to punish them. How did Vasudeva Devaki see Krishna? Or how did Nanda, who had come along with them, how did these parent-like people see Krishna? They thought of Krishna, oh, he's our child, right? And how did Kamsa see him, the king of Bhojas? How did Kamsa see him? He saw him as death personified. He realized looking at Krishna that, yes, this is my death which has come to me. The unintelligent as the Supreme Lord's universal form. What do we mean by unintelligent? Those who are not having deep jnana, and yet they were able to see that, okay, this is the form of the Lord himself. They may not have had specific jnana of what it is, but they could sense something there and they saw it as the Lord's form. The yogis who were there at that point of time, they saw him as Sat, the absolute truth. And the Vrishnis are the clan of people to the clan to which Krishna belonged. So these Vrishnis considered Krishna as their devata, as their supreme worshipable deity. So these are the different ways in which different people saw. Why there was so much difference? It was that same Krishna that everybody was looking at, right? And yet, based on the bhava they had, based on the state of mind in which they were, based on what they were as people, accordingly, they saw different things in this Krishna. Now, if somebody sees Krishna as a particular way, in a particular manner, the Lord will reciprocate in that same manner. So the wrestlers saw him as a lightning bolt. What did Krishna to do to them? he moved like lightning and made sure that they were disposed of. The women saw him as Manmatha. He reciprocated their love, right? His parents saw him as their child. He gave them that childlike affection to them. When Kamsa saw him as death, he granted death to Kamsa. So, this way, here the Lord is again reiterating that as somebody sees the Lord, as somebody approaches the Lord, he reciprocates in that very way. And why? What does this show us about the Lord's nature? That, okay, now here we have talked about Kamsa and bad people and all also. But generally, now when we are talking in terms of sadhana, there are different people who are performing sadhana in different ways. So, if there is somebody who is doing study of the scriptures, then the Lord will reveal himself to them through those scriptures itself. If there is somebody who is doing puja, he will reveal himself to them through that form of the deity whom they are worshipping. So, just as somebody approaches the Lord, he is so kind hearted, he is so full of vatsalya that he reciprocates, he gives back the joy in that same manner. And this is indeed why the Lord takes avatara. This is why the Lord comes and performs so many leelas here on this bhuloka, so that he can attract us by all these leelas that he performs. Now, there are some people who like the form of Krishna as a baby, where he stole butter, he did so much mischief, and he brought joy to all those people. He made them feel exasperated, but he also made them feel happy, right? So, there are some people who are attracted to that form of the Lord. There are some people who cherish the Rasa Leela. There are some people who cherish the acts of Krishna in killing all the asuras. There are some people who cherish the Lord because he gave Upadesha of Bhagavad Gita. So, why did the Lord do all these different things in that one avatara? So that different kinds of devotees with different bend of mind, with different bhavas towards him, all get an opportunity to take whatever it is that gives them joy and approach the Lord through that path. And this is indeed the reason why we have so many different forms of the Lord, isn't it? There are so many devatas, there are so many activities that they do. There are different names for not just these devatas, but also for the Supreme Lord. If you go to the temple, every day they have different alankaras for the Lord. Then we celebrate so many festivals. We have so many utsavas in the temples also. Why all this is done? So that everybody, based on what is their liking, they can take help of that particular path and they can reach the Lord. So just as we see the Lord, he reciprocates back to us. Now, what about people who are Nastikas, people who don't have belief in the Vedas? Nastikas are those who don't consider the Vedas as the source, as the pramana. And they say nothing whatever is told in the Vedas is not acceptable to us. So that is what we mean by Nastika. Many times people think that Nastika means somebody who is an atheist, somebody who does not believe in God. It is not about belief in God directly, it's about belief in the Vedas and not believing in what the Vedas have told. So even these Nastikas who don't believe the teachings of Vedas and who say that there is no God and where is God and such things, even inside those people also, the Lord is only sitting and patiently he is waiting. Okay, this fellow in this Janma, he will do all this, but he may have done some good things. So next time he will get a better Janma. He will ultimately come to me. He will get reformed. With that hope, the Lord waits patiently, sitting as Antaryami, even in that Nastika. So as we are, if you actually consider when a Nastika does all his, bhashan bazi, and he talks so much and gives big lectures and says God is not there, this is not there, that's not there. How is it that he is having the energy to say all that? What is it that is the life within him? It is this same Lord who is sitting there, and that Lord only is giving him the power to say those things, also, isn't it? So, as we see the Lord, same way he reciprocates back to us. That is what the Lord is telling to Arjuna. He's saying, just as whatever path people come to me, I will reciprocate accordingly. And whether they know it or they don't know it, ultimately everybody is going to reach me only. He's telling this. There is a very popular story. You may have heard this story also sometime. There was one person called Narahari Sonar. and he lived in Pandharpur. Now this Sonar means he was a goldsmith. Now this goldsmith was a very great bhakta of Shiva, and he would go to the Shiva temple in Pandharpur. But for whatever reason, he had a strong dislike for Vithala. Everybody knows about Vithala, right? Panduranga. So he never used to visit the temple of Vithala. If he had to pass by that temple, he would turn his face away and go, so that even by mistake he should not see that temple. Like this, he was living his life. Whenever there was any great Utsava in Pandharpur, at that time he would go away from there, so that he doesn't have to, by any chance also be part of that celebration of anything to do with Vithala. Now, one day there was one merchant who came to that town, and he came to Narhari, and he said, I want to make a waistband. You know a waistband, right? It's a ornament which is used to decorate the waist. So he said, I had made some, I had taken a vow, something, and I had promised that if what I desired took place, then I would make a waistband with all precious stones and gold and all that, and offer it to Vithala in the temple. So I want to make that, and everybody in this town, they told me that you are the best goldsmith in this place, so I have come to you. So Narari Sonar said, I can make, but I will not make anything for Vittal. I am not going to do anything for this Panduranga because I don't believe in him. I am a worshipper only of Shiva. So he said, I will not do this. But that merchant begged him like anything, and he said, please, please, you only have to do this. So then he said, okay, fine, but I will not come to the temple. Now, if you want to make a waistband for the Lord's Murti, then measurement has to be taken, right? For what is the diameter, what is the width of the waist of the Lord. And by taking that measurement only, he can make that waistband so that it fits properly. So he told the merchant, I'll show you how to take the measurements. You go to the temple, you take the measurements and come back and give it to me, and I will prepare it. So this was done. The merchant went, took the measurement, came back, gave it to Narhari Sonar, and he prepared the waistband according to it. It was a very beautiful work of art. All precious stones he had put and the gold, and made a wonderful design. So he gave it to this merchant and said, go, put it for your Vittal. So that merchant took it and went. And there, when the priest tried to fix it, it was too tight. It was not, they were not able to put the hook and close that waistband. So the priest said, this is too tight. You please take it back to the goldsmith and get it made a little longer so that it will fit properly. So the merchant came back. This Narari Sonar said, okay, fine, but I made exactly according to what measurement you had given. I don't know how this has happened. Okay, anyway, I will add an extra link in that chain and you can take it back so that now it will fit. So he did that. He added some extra links into that and he sent it with the merchant. Now, when the merchant took it and the priest tried to fit it, it was too long. It started slipping off from the waist of the Lord. So the priest said, see, now it has become too long. You take it back and get it shortened again. So he went back. Narari Sonar, he said, what is this nonsense? I have done it exactly. Why have you come back? He told him. So he said, okay, fine, I will remove one link. He removed one link and sent it back. Again, same thing, it became too tight. So this merchant was also fed up now. He came and he told Narari Sonar, see, probably there's something wrong. I don't know what is the matter. Why don't you yourself come with me and you only take the exact measurement and you alter it correctly? Because simply now, every time I'm doing this, it is not fitting and you are not believing me. You are shouting at me. So I don't know what to do. Maybe some mistake I am making. You only come. So he said, no, but I will not even look at Vittal. I will never even look at his face. So he said, fine, then why don't you do one thing? I will tie a blindfold on your eyes. I will cover your eyes so that you don't have to look at the form of Vittal. You don't need your eyes, isn't it? When you come into the temple with me, you can use your measuring tape and with your hands you can measure. You can, by the sense of touch, you can measure. So you don't need to look at the form of the Lord. So this Narari Sonar agreed and they went. When they went there and Narari Sonar had his eyes covered. So as soon as he put his arms, his hands at the waist region of the Vigraha, of the Murti, he started feeling as if there is some tiger skin there. And then he was having a doubt. What is this? Vittal's Murti doesn't have this tiger skin. Vittal is dressed in Pitambar. It will be some cloth-like thing. Why am I feeling something like an animal tiger skin-like thing here? He had a doubt. So then slowly he put his hands up to the top part of the Murti. His eyes are covered, you remember? So he moved his hands up slowly. And there he could feel something like a snake around the neck of the Murti. So what was his natural conclusion? That it is the form of Shiva and not of Vittal. So he was shocked. Why? He asked this merchant that, why have you brought me to the Shiva temple? Merchant said, no, I have brought you into Panduranga's temple. I have brought you to Vittal's temple. Why will I take you to Shiva temple? So he said, no, but I'm feeling, no, I can see Vittal only here, said the merchant. So immediately this Narahari Sonar, he pulled away that blindfold. Now, with his hands, he was feeling the form of Shiva. He pulled away the blindfold from his eyes. He opened his eyes and looked. He can only see Vittal. So immediately he closed his eyes and he said, okay, tied the blindfold again. I will take the measurement now. So the minute the blindfold was tied and he put his hands there to take the measurement, again the same sensation he's having. Now he can even, he put his hands little to the side. He can even feel the Trishul which is standing there in the hands of Shiva. So like this, he started having the sensation. At one point of time, he's feeling like it is like a linga. So he was wonderstruck and again he opened his eyes. And when he saw, again he saw only Vittal. So at that moment, it struck Narhari that, oh, the Lord is trying to teach me that I am only Shiva, I am only Vittala, I am only Panduranga, I am only the Linga. So his eyes were open. Now, not only the blindfold was gone and physically he got vision, but spiritual vision also came to him. And he learned that the Lord was trying to teach him that when you are a bhakta, when you are a devotee, you should not discriminate between the different forms of the Lord. It is, now please understand here, the tattva is that we need to concentrate and focus on one form of the Lord to make sure that we progress spiritually very quickly. We should not dissipate our energies in worshipping different deities. But the idea is, what was the problem with this Narahari Sonar? He was having dvesha for one form of the Lord. And he thought that only one particular form whom he was worshipping is the deity to be worshipped. And he had a lot of hatred and dvesha for the other forms of the Lord. So the Lord performed this Leela to teach him that this is not the right attitude to have. So please understand this point because there's a nuance here. When we say, we've been talking all along in our sadhana and we've been telling that we must stick to worship of one form of the Lord. Why are we telling that? Because then we get concentration. If I say that I will go on Monday to Shiva temple, on Tuesday I will go to Devi temple, on Wednesday I will worship Rama, on Thursday I will do something for Dattatreya. When we do things for different forms of the Lord, our focus is not on one form. So getting attachment to that particular one form of the Lord is a little difficult for us. So as we progress in our sadhana, just like in our education in worldly life, when you go from school to college to undergraduate to postgraduate to PhD, we go to focus on one particular aspect. So also we should choose one devata, one form of the Lord, not devata, I mean the Lord, one form of the Lord, and we should focus our energy on that form. So it is told like that. But at the same time, we may be following whatever we are doing for one form of the Lord, but we should not have hatred or dvesha for any other form of the Lord. So to teach Narahari Sonar this lesson, Lord Panduranga enacted this Leela. So here again, the Lord has proved that now this Narahari Sonar, he had lot of faith in the form as Shiva. So he was feeling as if Shiva is standing there. That also is the same as the Lord. That's what he was trying to show Narhari, that don't have dvesha for any particular form of the Lord. So that again brings us to the same point, that just as somebody offers devotion, the Lord shows himself to them in that form. And then sometimes to take them ahead further and further to develop more and more devotion for him, he makes sure that they are not getting into any wrong attitudes and wrong kinds of habits. So then he opens their eyes that way also. Right? So this was about the 11th shloka. Now we move forward to the 12th shloka. So in this, Krishna is telling Arjuna, कांक्षन्तः कर्मणां सिद्धिं यजन्त इह देवताः क्षिप्रं हि मानुषे लोके siddhir bhavati karmaja. Now, he told in the previous shloka that however anybody wants to approach me, ultimately they all come to me only, whatever path they surrender. Now, he is making another finer point here. He says, in this world, people who want success for their material activities, they worship the celestial gods, the Devata, not the Supreme Lord, but the gods, the deities who are there. Why? Because these gods give material rewards very quickly. So, what do we mean by these celestial gods, Devata? Entities like Indra, Varuna, Agni, Vayu, and so on. So, there are people who perform certain homas, certain yajnas, which are told in the Vedas, so that you can make these particular devatas happy. And when that, you remember, we have seen this already in the third chapter, that if you perform certain yajnas as prescribed in the Vedas, you are going to please that devata. And because that devata has been pleased, they will give you whatever you are desiring. So with a particular objective, with a particular goal, with a particular desire to fulfill some material wish of yours, if you perform those particular actions as are told in the Vedas, you will get the benefit because those devatas will give you those rewards, right? Now, here, Krishna has only told that that should be done. Then here, he's again telling that people do this because they will get the rewards quickly. Now, here we can find that there is a slight, note of what Krishna is telling. He's kind of saying this as if it's not really the ultimate thing to be done. He had told in the previous chapter that we should do that because it is told in the Vedas. But always beyond the Vedas are the Vedanta. So Vedas will tell you how to do karma kanda, how to perform ritualistic activities. And by performing those activities, we can do them to get particular benefits. But that is only at the initial level. Now, actually, when the Devata is giving this particular boon or whatever, Ashirvad to you, who is it that is actually giving? Even within that Devata, the Antaryami, the resider within that devata who has the power to give you the boons is Lord Srimanarayana himself. It is Lord Krishna himself. So when you worship the deities, you are worshipping a particular form of the deity, right? In that form, when you worship, you get results. But you think that Indra gave me this result, Varuna gave me this result. But actually, who is it that is giving? It is the Lord himself. So that Lord is Antaryami within that Devata also. It is because the Lord has enabled, has empowered that Devata that the Devata is giving the result. Right? So by sitting within that deity, the Supreme Lord permits those Devatas to grant boons. So it is okay. Now, rather than somebody who is a Nastika, definitely it is better to have belief in what the Vedas are telling and to follow whatever Vedas are telling to get something for yourself. So it is human nature to seek fulfillment of desires. Materialistically, we want lot of things. I want to have a happy life. I want to have a good career. I want to make money. I want to have enough to supply for my family, right? I want to have a house. I want to have good clothes. I want to have this. I want to have that. I want peace of mind. I want everything. So when I approach some devata to fulfill my desires, at the initial level, it is okay that I will do this puja for you. You please give me this. That is okay. That is also accepted in Sanatan Dharma. But that is not the ultimate stage. That is the very beginning. That is like the kg of sadhana. That you do what is called as sakama sadhana. You do sadhana with some desire. But the idea is, after doing that for some time, you have to progress further and further to reach the level of nishkama sadhana, where you have no desire, and without any desire, you are doing your sadhana. You are doing whatever you do for the pleasure of the Lord. So that is what is expected from us. Now, deities will give us whatever we ask. But if we slowly move ahead and go beyond the devatas and worship the Supreme Lord, then even if we ask something, he will only give that which is needed for our progress. Just like a mother, if there is a child who is pointing at some brightly colored liquid and the mother knows that it is a poisonous substance, she will not give it to that child. Same way, the Lord will not give us just because we are asking for something. He will give us that which is necessary for us to grow and progress and come closer to Him. That which is apt for us is given to us. But here, Krishna is telling this, and he seems to be saying this with this point in mind, that he's not too happy about this. In the previous shloka, he told, whatever way people are coming to me, I reciprocate, and knowingly or unknowingly, everybody follows my path. So here he is specifying that even those who are going to the devatas, right, and they are seeking the devatas' help for getting some material benefit, actually, I am only the one who is giving that also to them. So these gods, it seems like the rewards are coming quickly. So people worship those gods. But even by worship of those gods, ultimately, whatever worship has been performed is coming to me only. There is actually one shloka which says that Sarvadeva Namaskara Keshavam Pratigachati. So just like water from all the rivers ultimately enters the ocean, like that, whichever devata you worship, whichever god you worship, whichever form of the Lord you worship, ultimately everything reaches Keshava, Krishna himself. So we need to keep this point in mind. And if we can go to the source itself, why should we be bothered about the smaller level devatas? Let us focus our worship on the Lord. He has come with so many avatars. He has done so many leelas to keep our senses engaged. So why should we leave that and run after the smaller level devatas just to fulfill some desires, right? If we worship the Lord, He will give us whatever is required for our spiritual benefit. And definitely, materialistically, also, we will be getting whatever is necessary for us. So we must remember this point. Now, in the 13th shloka, Krishna talks a little bit about different occupations, different varnas which he created and how he created that. So he says, Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagashah tasya kartaram mam vidya avyayam. So he says the 4 categories of occupations were created by me according to people's qualities and activities. According to guna, the quality, and karma, the activities which they perform. And although I am the person who created the system, I am not the doer and I am eternal. I am Sanatana. I am Shashvata. I am the eternal one. I made this system, but I am not the one who is doing anything inside this system. I have set up the system and the system is supposed to follow. So, what are these 4 categories? We have heard, right, about the 4 varnas. We know there is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Now, lot of people have lot of misunderstandings about this system. When the Lord created, he created 4 varnas. Now today we see that people are equating this to jati. And if you look at the list of jatis that are there, the castes which have been created, there are, you can say 400 castes may be there. The Lord only created 4 varnas. Who is it that made these jatis? It is the petty human beings who created this system, isn't it? The varnas were created by the Lord. Why? So that there is an equal distribution of different activities in Samaja. So that there is a balance and there is cooperation and there is what you say, a, uh, an environment which is conducive for everybody's sadhana. So what the Lord created was differentiation. That this is one varna, this is one varna, this is one varna. They all have different roles to play in society. And by doing whatever is part of their varna, based on their qualities and their activities. Again, please note, it was not based on the birth that they took. There could be somebody who was born into a Brahmana family, but was following activities of another varna. There could be somebody who was born in another varna but was doing adhyayana, adhyapana, he would be considered a Brahmana. So we must understand that there's a lot of difference between the concepts of differentiation and discrimination. Maybe we can understand by thinking of how a company works. In a company, you have a manufacturing department, you have a sales department, you have an R&D section, right? You have a quality control department. Is any one compartment, any one department superior to the others? No. If somebody in manufacturing thinks that, oh, because I am manufacturing, I am the most superior, what will happen is products will not get sold, then there will be a loss to the company. If there is somebody in sales who thinks, oh, I am the one who's responsible for all the profit of the company, what if there was no manufacturing at all? What would he sell? Isn't it? So, like that, in society also, all the varnas are required for a smooth running of that system. So, every varna has to perform whatever is their prescribed duty, and through that, they were meant to reach the Lord. Now, the Brahmana is sattva predominant. He is considered as the head of the Lord. The Kshatriya is Raja predominant, more of Rajoguna. He is considered like the arms of the Lord. The Vaishya has a mixture of Rajoguna and Tamoguna. So he is considered like the belly of the Lord. And the Shudra is predominant in Tamoguna. He is considered as the feet of the Lord. Now you think of all the bhaktas, of all the stotras which sing of the glories of the Lord, and everywhere, which part of the body does everybody want to attain? Is it the head of the Lord? Is it the arms of the Lord? Is it the belly of the Lord? No. We say, oh Lord, please take me as at your lotus feet. So the feet are where we should do our surrender. So whatever was told as these parts of the body, different varnas, it was so that everybody does whatever is told to them as per their varna. The Brahmana was supposed to do study of the Vedas, study of the Shastras, and explain that to society. He did not have to do anything to earn his livelihood. He has to depend on whatever is given to him by the other people. The Kshatriya was meant to protect society from being, from onslaught of enemies and all that. The Vaishya was meant to earn money and provide that money for the Brahmanas to lead their life and for the Kshatriyas to do their Rajya. The Shudra was meant to do service. He had more of the physical capability, so he was supposed to render service to in all possible ways possible through physical labor. So everybody was supposed to do whatever was their thing. Now, in today's times, we don't have any one definite varna as such. There has been a lot of mixing of the qualities of the gunas. So, what should we do? We have to do a little bit of everything. Wherever there is a need for our intelligence, we have to use our intelligence. We have to study the shastras, we have to study the scriptures, and we have to try to adopt in our life. Whenever we see any injustice going on, we have to stand up and fight against that injustice. Whenever we are earning, all of us are earning our livelihood, we need to earn by a righteous method, and we need to offer that for the upkeep of society. And we need to perform some form of physical seva by offering seva in the temple or by doing puja to the Lord in our house, like this. So, this is what we have to do. And then it may not be possible for us to do all of this all the time. So, the best path which is told for today's Kali Yuga is the path of Nama Sankirtana. And whenever we think that, oh, this Varna system is, discriminatory, we must understand what was the original intention with which it was created. In fact, all the great devotees of the Lord, all the Alvars, they have always said, see the bhakti of the person and not what janma he is, what is his birth, right? So we have less than a minute left. I'll quickly sum up. We need to stop running to God to fulfill our petty desires. We need to worship the Lord with love for him and with joy, seeking that he should feel happy by our worship. We must learn to bear whatever difficulties come, accept that it is our karma, accept that it is the Lord's will, and use that situation to improve our bhakti. And we need to spend more and more time and energy in thinking and glorifying the Lord. He will reciprocate the way we approach him. So let us offer Kritagnyata, gratitude, at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start enjoying this satsang.